while we were talking, so.
Yeah. Well, on that note, I actually forgot to start the camera because I'm also recording myself to start a new video. Mike and I are hopping in with Sebastian to do a branding call to where we're reviewing a bunch of like I guess the whys. Would that be accurate? Like why we're doing what we're doing?
Yeah, discovery, like understanding the business and defining the brand.
Yeah.
Basically.
And that'll help us continue to make, on my end, decent design decisions that fit that, which Sebastian and I have fleshed out pretty good. And Mike was actually stoked on like what we had, because when we onboarded Steve, which I'll tell you about in a moment, we had to work through a lot of this. So it's been a very long time since I filmed an update. So there's a lot to go through. Where's
Sure.
Sebastian though? He's late. There's no way he answers.
We can keep it brief and just review and then dig into the part I sort of had prepared.
To voicemail.
Yeah, dude, let's just hop into it. Sebastian, I'm sure, will show up in a moment. He probably forgot, so. That was actually a really dope call. Pretty stoked on it. Yeah, so in these calls, like these branding calls I'm doing it with Mike, and Sebastian's on it, and we're going through everything with Mike so that he can create not just a logo, but like a little bit of depth to the brand, like what we want to identify with, how we want to be established, how we want to express ourselves, all these things. And it's important because like we want to create something that's more expressive, has more ownership over, that like, I don't know, just like feels more real and authentic to like the way we want to do things. But last time I put together this model. It's lost some bits and pieces. The handlebars had to change. We've mounted some brake levers on it. We did some minute things. We started taping controller shapes onto like these cubes to feel things out. But let's rip through the CAD first, and then I'll show you kind of what we're doing. And then we'll get into telling you about where we're at with the electrical systems, because on the current model, you'll see some shit. So, this is the model, and it doesn't have tires and stuff on it. This is the model that I was working on here. So the goal was like, hey, like we have to test these scooters and ride them. So we can either make a bunch of Mad Max, like prototype 2s, functional prototype 2s, or we can send over like this front end design to the factory and like test this extrusion, have the clamps actually CNC machined, and like see what this stuff is gonna like feel like for the front end, because in theory that won't change much. So it went from us getting a bunch of like the electrical components over here, putting together the decks and the electrical system, and then ordering the bars and like the front end from the factory, to why don't we have the factory make everything using standard materials, and they can wire it all, and that way they're learning as we're learning and we get more value out of it. And so this model that you're looking at right here used standard tubes, and that's kind of why in this section down here it started being just like a little goofy, if that makes sense. It's because like I could only really use square rectangular tubes. So yeah, a little clunkier. There wasn't a like angle down here. Like this scooter behind me has like an angle on the sides of it for like ground clearance turning, so we couldn't do that. We have like this chunky front corner, so like that was kind of a bummer too. So this model just started feeling clunky, and we were like, well, if we build this model, and then we have to do another one, and let's say this takes 6 months for the factory to put together, and they have to build like fixtures for CNC machines and stuff to like actually make this because they're a production facility. We're like, okay, what features do we miss? And that's where on this model you do have this Pac-Man shape here for the wire routing, and originally this just used round tubes. Well, we added the Pac-Man shape back in, and then we were like, what other feature do we wish we had? And we wish we had those cuts at the bottom of the deck for turning clearance. And then we also wish it didn't have this incredibly ugly front clunky surface. So we're like, okay, let's add in a couple extrusions. Let's tool some stuff up. Let's actually make this thing like legit. So I did that, and then we got to thinking, and this front control panel right here is like the last weak link then, because of the wire routing. There's not good places to secure the wiring and stuff like that. Oh, and the battery. We were like, how are we going to support the battery in the prototype? Well, we just realized we're at the points where we've tried enough 3D prints, we've tried enough CAD designs, we just need to rip it. So we're going to go for gold, and we're going to tool up, we're going to make prototypes. I'm nervous for sure. Don't really want to lose a bunch of money, especially with the tariffs coming up. Like, we could talk about that. That's going to be brutal. This is where we're at. So let me toss on some ray tracing so we can see this bad boy. Let's start at the top. Handlebars. That's an actual factory supplied model. We got a 35 millimeter diameter bar. I'm really excited about that. That seems to be the way downhill's going. And it looks better with the vertical fork tubes. Actual brake lever models. This right here, actual LCD screen. If you're from EBMX world, you know what I'm talking about. And this is the colored model. And then over here, let me see if I can highlight it. Actual thumb throttle. Again, if you're from like EBMX e-bikes, you're gonna recognize this throttle. If you're not into the thumb throttle, you're gonna be able to plug and unplug the throttle. It's separate from the LCD screen, which was huge. Headlight. This is a real headlight. We found a headlight, and it's actually got a 3D printed mount for this version, and that is good too. And then we have the Pac-Man wire routing shape. The clamps are kind of the same. Going back here, you'll notice there are brake calipers, real model brake calipers put onto the model. It is the real deal. And then that's not a rectangle. That's an actual controller, like a real controller. So that controller, there's one on the other side too, is a big deal because it's like a cableless design. So what that means is the cableless design, everything connects to it. There are not wires coming out of it. You plug into it. So that just keeps your wiring cleaner, because instead of having connectors that are rigid on a wire that needs to bend around things, you just have a wire bend around things. Way cleaner design. We're in between two controllers right now. This is our preferred option. I can tell you more about it later, but it does have 22% less power than Mad Max. Now, the purpose of the scooter is to upgrade it, and the purpose for us is to continue to push the limits. So if people don't upgrade it, we can potentially offer a more powerful scooter in the future. We don't want to sacrifice the feeling of the scooter or like the ease of maintenance, interchangeability of components for the sake of a little bit of speed on the start. It's a very hard decision to make, because we can use a controller that has wiring that we don't love, which has more power, or we use a controller with a little less power, but has like the preferred wiring and really good development support from the owner directly. Moving on, we have a deck plate. Our battery is suspended in an extrusion, just like all the 3D prints we did back in the day. We're working on that design right now. We're going back and forth with vendors. We're trying to fit this battery in this chassis. It's proving really, really, really hard. Like, you have a certain volume you need for the battery, so if you change it one way, it goes out the other ways. The volume of a battery cannot change, but how it's set up, how you turn the battery on and off, how the cables feed through the enclosure, all these things can change. So it's been a nightmare. I'm at wit's end, but we're making really good progress. And tomorrow I actually have to review a bunch of files that the suppliers are going to send over, and hopefully we'll make some progress. Going to the back of the scooter, that fender, as drawn, is one piece bent aluminum. Pretty stoked on it. It feels really like the design I really like. I like that. Let me turn off this ray tracing. I love that the taillight is above the rear wheel. I know on Mad Max we had the two little lights on the side next to the wheel, but they were low, and it made the scooter look more like almost like a hoverboard from the back because everything was so low. And scooters are vertical in design a lot, so it just looked wrong. So I designed a new fender that came up a little bit further than the stubby one we're in love with, but I love it. And that model on the computer right now is the real taillight, and it works with the controllers that are on this model. So I should say, currently the controller has been tested with the LCD screen, the throttle, the headlight, and the taillight. And value added, this headlight actually has a horn integrated inside of it. So if we need it for regulations for a certain area, or somebody wanted a horn, like, it's there. I'm not sure what we're gonna do for a horn button, because right now we don't have any buttons on the handlebars. Everything should be configurable through the LCD screen. And then the way that the fender routes the wires is there's just holes for zip ties down it. I want everything to be as changeable as possible, like interchangeable as possible. So there's just like all the wiring is kind of zip tied. It's very tucked away and clean, but it is zip tied. Oh, we have not tested the motors, but this model also has real motors on it. And then these tires are not real. Just a heads up, they don't have, this tire tread is made up. And then the brakes are the actual, they'll be, like right now on the model, they're the Logan branded brakes, but yeah, they're gonna be the actual brakes on the scooter. So how did we come up with all of this? Well, we hired a product electrical systems manager in China. And he's been awesome. He has worked with us for, gosh, going on a couple months, maybe 3+ months now. And we have contacted a gajillion factories. We've had a lot of no's and we had a few yeses. We have found 2 controller suppliers that we tend to like. We got a hold of the factory with the LCD screen that we preferred. And we got a hold of the factory that makes the throttle that we preferred. Then through the grapevine, we were able to find the light providers. We had this crazy situation to where I actually took a picture of a Lime scooter with a ruler and I was like, we need this taillight. And we were able to contact somebody at Lime and be like, hey, where do you get your taillights? And we couldn't get the exact same one because it was their specific design. But we got one really freaking close. So it's a really nice compact taillight. So where does that leave us? Well, we're struggling with the battery design, choosing between the controllers, a lot of details with the electrical system, how the battery communicates, if we want it to what extent, the wiring, the wire routing. So that takes us to this region here of the scooter. This area here in like the control panel, which historically has looked like this component here. This is the hardest part because all of the wires, including the almost 10 millimeter thick motor wire, go through there. And underneath that control panel, we now have what we call as a splitter. I'm not going to show you in the model, but the splitter takes the signals from all the controls. It's a custom circuit board. I know we weren't supposed to do custom circuit boards, but it's a custom circuit board, and it sends the signals to the controllers. All of that's tucked behind that control panel. So we have to make sure that our cable routing is secure. So we can't just have cables feeding through there. We have to make sure that they are completely secured, not moving, and not going to damage anything for anybody riding the scooter, working on it, whatever. And then we're trying to figure out the best system for the battery. Not only choosing the supplier, but choosing how the battery is going to turn on and off. Because one of the things that I disliked the most about the electric scooters I've worked on is that they don't have batteries that turn off. Some of them you can disconnect, but when you disconnect and connect them, you get sparking. And some of them use anti-spark connectors, but they're still a little intimidating. So we want to try to create the safest possible battery scenario. And we have some ideas that we're working on with that. And of course that changes the size as well. So we have a lot of changes to this model that looking at is so sick. We have a lot of changes that have to happen to this model because the chassis is dependent on like the battery size. The chassis is dependent on how we route those cables, the control panel, all of that stuff. So it's been a bit of a pain point. Just getting to the design to this point, but you can see like how much further we are with the sourcing and like the fact that there's real stuff on the model. And I'm hoping that in the next several weeks, we solve the battery control panel. And then it's time to literally draw the cables on the model and include all the wire and include all the fasteners. Because once we have the cables and the wires drawn, we can measure all of the wire lengths, which is insane. Yeah, those are the biggest things. So shout out to Steve, new team member, and then also shout out to Sebastian. It took a couple months off, probably almost 3 months off of working together and just focused on sourcing and designing and how this thing's going to come together. Because even though the model is simple, there's so many intricacies and dependencies that I'm over 2,000 dimensions drawn. I've redone this model to the point where I'm on like solid 100. And there's probably several thousand geometric constraints in this model, which is insane. So it's a lot for one person. And if the scooter sells, obviously, we will hire a 3D designer to help because I have a ton of ideas that we're not even able to like scratch the surface with. And more just came up on that call that we had earlier. So there's a chance that we might go visit Steve. He's going to be in America soon. So Sebastian and I might fly out, meet up with him and just talk in person and meet him because we've never met him. And then the next plan is to get this model done. So either next time I see you, we'll either be with Steve or we'll be getting this model done and showing you what it looks like with the wires on it and us. Because I think that's just going to make the entire thing. And I'm really excited. All right, I'll catch you later. I'm going to go draw control panels and get back to work. See ya.